So all that Swami can really do, all that any master can actually do, is to invite you to undertake the process of self-inquiry.
In an interview with Sai Baba, he said to you, fill your mind with just one question. He said, the only question is, who am I?
In 2006, Kodaikanal, once 30 of us were sitting around Swami, and Swami asked this question, who am I? And then answers were flying thick and fast. And, people said, Swami, you are love. And Swami said, no. Then, many answers flew thick and fast. And I remember one particular answer. That person said, Swami, you are Paripurna Avatara, which means in English, you are the absolute divine incarnate. And Swami said, Adu kade kadu, I am definitely not that. And then Swami said, I am I.
And another big lesson from Sai Baba, you are not the body, you are not the mind.
Everything the mind says, from a point of view, it's a lie. And I'm not qualifying the statement. Everything is a lie.
In finding the answers to who am I, Sanjay continues to be the ever-faithful Baba student. Sai Baba is famous for having taught, what is it that you would rather have, information or transformation?
I had become a bit of a scholar in Indian scriptures, the Upanishads, the Vedas, the works of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, and I used to read a lot, and Swami used to read. But in 2007, Swami said, make a bundle of all your books and throw it in the river. And I never read a book since that day, and it is today now, 13, 14 years. I haven't read a book. I haven't picked up a spiritual book with the intention of reading it.
So why did he say that to you?
Because there is nobody, no master, however great, no book, however wonderfully written, no word, however beautifully expressed, no thought, however profound it is, can give us the slightest clue of who we are. So every answer to the question who we are is only a stumbling block. Because the moment you get an answer in the inquiry, you are supposed to ask, we should ask, who got the answer? And again, the answer comes, oh, I got the answer. Oh, so who am I? And then you go deeper. So it is like this. It is like an infinite well. You can only fall into it. You cannot reach the bottom.
Sanjay, welcome to Souljourns. It's a delight to have you with us. I've been looking forward to this. I hope you have been too.
Same here, Ted. Looking forward to talking to you. Thank you for having me.
I'd like to begin by asking a couple of follow-up questions to some of the excellent points you made. In an interview with Sai Baba, he said to you, every answer that your mind finds to a question will simply lead to 1,000 more questions. And then he said, ignore all those questions and fill your mind with just one question. And I knew before I heard you say it what that question was going to be, Sanjay. He said, the only question is, who am I? It gave me goosebumps when I heard you say it, because that's where Jody and I and many other Sai devotees and other people we know who are not Sai devotees are moving towards more and more. Did you know instantly what that meant?
Swami's words are always like that. There are so many dimensions to it. So you discover more and more of it as you discover more and more of yourself. So it's always an ongoing process. Like something Swami said to me in 2005, it made a certain sense to me. In 2009, when I was a different person, it made a completely different sense to me. And today, I look at it in a completely different way. So of course, Swami's words reveal more and more layers, as more and more layers of yourself you discover. Sure. So yeah, it did make sense to me, but it makes a lot more, it's a lot more insightful to me today where I sit.
Well, you said that now twice. Today it means something different. What does it mean to you that it's insightful today?
Yeah. So you see, as I started experiencing who I am, or rather, who I truly am started seeping into my experience, the first thing that really hit me was that we all live in a world of words. All of us. We live in this world of I know. And that was the first shock I got when I really realized that I simply don't know anything at all. I simply don't know anything. In fact, nowadays, when people ask me questions, increasingly I find myself at a loss of words. I find myself increasingly unable to communicate what I truly want to communicate because I just really don't know. And not only do I not know, all that is of value to me and value to anybody is actually unknowable. All of us are swimming in an ocean of unknowable mystery. And to be comfortable with it and to live in harmony with this unknowable, unknown mystery is a very powerful way to live. So I realized that really, I don't know if this is the right way to put it. Everything the mind says, from a point of view, it's a lie. And I'm not qualifying the statement. Everything is a lie. From, the point of view of consciousness, for lack of a better phrase, everything the mind tells is simply a lie, and it can be safely ignored. So the whole thing is, we believe the mind, and then we're trying to change the mind, and then we're trying to transform the mind, and we're trying to transform our experience of life. In all this, who we are escapes our attention. So basically, if it's like this. Now, if I really don't know anything at all, what is there to do? The mind automatically becomes absolutely silent, and you become completely available to this moment, and you become completely available to who you are. And therefore, as a natural consequence, the question arises from the heart: who am I? What am I doing here? Where have I come from? Where am I going? What's my purpose? Who the hell am I? I mean, what am I really doing here? So automatically the mind starts to dive deep, and it starts to gain the power to rest in the absolute. But the key thing is to see that we don't know anything.
Mm-hmm. Baba,
but we create this, I'm so sorry, we create this mind-induced bubble of certainty, whereas life is really uncertain. See, for example, now this COVID thing is happening and everybody is coming face to face with this uncertainty, and we don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But life has always been uncertain. That's why Swami said, love my uncertainty. Nothing about life is ever certain. Nothing about life is ever known, but we create this mind-induced idea of certainty that I know, I got it, I understand. Labels, categories, oh yeah, I understood, I got it all figured out, but we haven't. We really haven't.
It's a long process. And it sounds to me like you're hitting at that perhaps you've got a step ahead of many of us who are still struggling with that. Baba's given us a couple of clues along the way about what you're speaking here. And one of them is, repeat after me. I am God, I am God, I am no different than God. Well, that almost sounds like a cliche. I've heard it so many hundreds, if not thousands of times, if not from Baba, from other people. Yet there's real depth there. There's real meaning there if you want to stop and look at those words and take it seriously. And I just wonder how much, like little pieces of breadcrumbs he drops along the way that presents the answer unfolding for us if we only bother to look. You've bothered to look. What have you found?
So you see, Swami's the statement, I am God. It's quite powerful. First thing about Swami was that, again, for lack of a better phrase, Swami was a mass avatar. He came for everyone. He came for the billions. So Swami said many things in various different contexts, right? But it is for us, based on our temperament, on our proclivity, that we choose and pick the essential teachings of Bhagavan, which is most important for us to grow. And by the way, I will be using the words Bhagavan, Swami, Sai Baba interchangeably. They all refer to Bhagavan, Sri Sathya Sai Baba. So, so when Swami said, I am God, it's fine. It's okay. It's a positive affirmation. But a way more powerful inquiry, and I'm differentiating inquiry from the word affirmation here, is who am I? Because the moment you say, I am God, it is an answer. And when you have an answer, inquiry stops. Because who are you? I'm God. What else to do now? But when you don't know who you are, there's a never-ending inquiry. And who am I is a question without an answer. It does not have an answer. If you found an answer, you found a roadblock.
How do you make sense of that question then?
It
If you
is not to
know
be made
someone
sense
doesn't
of.
have
That's
an
the whole point. See, the mind loves to make sense of everything.
answer? Right.
Inquiry is for dissolution. Inquiry is to dissolve, not to make sense of it. Because as long as we're trying to make sense of it, we will remain trapped in the mind. It is impossible for a mind that loves to make sense of things to rest in the absolute. Impossible. So, this desire to make sense of something, this desire to understand, this desire to define it in our mind, this is what stops the process of deep inquiry. So the first thing is to let go the desire to know, to understand, and to simply be willing to be able to jump. Just dive deep, completely. Just simply dive. So when Swami says, I am God, see, it's like this. When the mind is very chaotic, suppose the negative impulses are very strong, then probably it's a useful affirmation. It brings certain order to the mind. So, in that context, Swami might have said, but Swami also said, in fact, I have spoken of this many times in many talks. In 2006, Kodaikanal, once 30 of us were sitting around Swami, and Swami asked this question, who am I? Swami asked this question, pointing to himself, who am I? And then answers were flying thick and fast. And, people said, Swami, you are love. And Swami said, no, Kadu. In Telugu, he said Kadu. Then, many answers flew thick and fast. And I remember one particular answer. The person said, Swami, you are Paripurna Avatara, which means in English, you are the absolute divine incarnate. And Swami said, Adu Kade Kadu, I am definitely not that. And finally, we all gave up. And then Swami said, I am I.
So he used
Nenu,
the phrase.
Nene.
Yeah.
He used the exact phrase Nenu, Nene in Telugu, which means I am I. That's all. That's all. Stop adding labels. I am this, I am that. I am simply I.
Once to me in the interview room, and I'm sure to many, many, countless other people, he has said the same thing. So, who is Ted? Well, there are three Teds. There's the Ted that Sanjay thinks he knows. In the brief time that we've had a chance to size one another up, you've got an opinion or an observation. And then there's the Ted that I think I know. And then there's the real Ted. As many times as I've heard that story, I don't think I've ever heard Baba say a whole lot about who you are. He sort of opens the door and waits for you to start passing through it to ask of him in your heart, if not face to face. And I think that's part of the illusory game. He calls it a drama. He calls it a play.
See, Ted, there is a reason why Swami never gave the answer to the question, who am I? Because the moment Swami gives an answer, we will make it a concept. We will make it a mental concept. Like, for example, I am God. So, and there, inquiry stops. Not only inquiry, even spiritual growth kind of stops. You lose access to the transcendent reality of who we are. So all that Swami can really do, all that any master can actually do, is to invite you to undertake the process of self-inquiry. I used to be into a lot of books till about 2007. And again, I have mentioned this many times in many talks, and Swami used to encourage me. I had become a bit of a scholar in Indian scriptures, the Upanishads, the Vedas, the works of Sri Adi Shankaracharya. And I used to read a lot, and Swami used to read. But in 2007, Swami said, make a bundle of all your books and throw it in the river.
Even though there was no water in the river.
Yeah, exactly. And I never read a book since that day, and it is today now, 13, 14 years. I haven't read a book. I haven't picked up a spiritual book with the intention of reading it. Of course, sometimes some books, they just come into your hands and you might just flip through a few pages, but I haven't picked a book.
So
because there is nothing. Sorry?
So why did he say that to you?
Because there is nobody, no master, however great, no book, however wonderfully written, no word, however beautifully expressed, no thought, however profound it is, can give us the slightest clue of who we are. Because everything that is every answer to the question who we are is only a stumbling block. Because the moment you get an answer in the inquiry, you are supposed to ask, we should ask, who got the answer? And again, the answer comes, oh, I got the answer. Oh, so who am I? And then you go deeper. So it is like this. It is like an infinite well. You can only fall into it. You cannot reach the bottom. But then that is the joy. The mind loves certainty. It needs to know. So what's at the end of this tunnel? Nothing. It's an infinite tunnel. We can fall into it and dissolve in the absolute. It is like the wave becomes the ocean. So it is like this. There was a great Sufi mystic in India called Kabir Das. I don't know if you have heard of him. A few centuries back. Very, very great yogi and a mystic, Kabir. He used to say in his language, I'll translate it for you. He said, when I am there, the guru is not. And now that the guru is there, I am not. Okay. So as Ramana Maharishi would say, it's like in that, I am not. So there is really nobody to of course, once we see the absolute, then the experience we can draw it into the mind, then try to make sense of it, and then we can even verbalize it. But the experience itself, the abidance itself in the absolute is wordless, thoughtless, answerless, and it is just what it is.
Let's move on along this same line, if we might. Baba also told the boys, perhaps the same boys in your presence at the same time, the story of Buddha, who also asked of himself, who am I? Seems to be a popular phrase. That same question obviously was posed by Ramana Maharshi back in 1902 to a young reporter or journalist who wanted to put his thoughts and words of wisdom into book form. And 20 years later, it came out as the book, Who Am I? Well, the question I want to know is, why has it taken so long for, still relatively speaking, only a handful of people to be aware of the concept and willing to engage in the practice of self-inquiry?
In one word, willingness. Most of us, most of humanity, is still very interested in the drama of the mind, which is fine. There is no judgment. We are gods. We can choose to play the game as long as we want to play. But many people, even most of almost 99%, and I'm just throwing this number, percent of even those people who claim to be spiritual, who claim to be on the path, really are only trying to improve their lives, the content of their lives. Very few people are really willing to know life itself. Very few. Most people who claim I'm on the path, I want self-realization, I want to attain Godhead or whatever, it's not true. They only say that, but deep down, what they want is to improve their story. Very few people are willing to go beyond the story and to know oneself. Again, it's fine. There's no judgment. It's our choice. It's our game, our rules. We are the only one, really. There's nobody else other than us. So we can pretty much do what we want with our lives. But that's why so few people actually truly inquire into the nature of who we are, because we're just too interested in our thoughts. We just love our story.
I got to be a nuisance with my family members and friends and relatives, because even as a kid, I'd go around asking, who am I? Baba lit the fire underneath me to start investigating more. Your case, as a young man, as a young boy, were you on a profound spiritual path, or did you have a curiosity about such things that led you to where you are today?
Before I answer this question, I was qualified. I really have no use of the past. I have no use of it anymore. You ask me, so I'll talk about it. But to me, it makes a second before this second is dead wood. It makes no sense. It's not important, right? Past has no hold over our ability to be in presence in this presence right now. But yeah, I remember I got introduced to Swami as a form, because from my grandmother, and so we were a family of Sai devotees from very, very early on. So I think I was about 12 or maybe 10, 12 years old when I first heard the word, oh God, Sai Baba is God. And our house was the center, because we had a big house. So we used to have regular bhajans and all that, and study circles and speeches. And I remember even as a 13, 14-year-old, I used to wonder, what are these people talking about? Do they really know what they're talking about? And I used to wonder, and nothing of that used to make sense to me. I remember this very clearly. And people would say, oh, Swami is this, Swami is that, Swami is God. And I would like sit there and wonder, how can I get a deeper experience of Swami? All this is not making sense. And I know. And I had a great childhood, wonderful parents, terrific family, good upbringing. But somehow I was always deeply dissatisfied with my life. I remember this. There used to be a constant sense of lack and a kind of a misery which always used to accompany me. Nothing was wrong with my life, but somehow it used to be like that. And yeah, so that's how it was before I actually landed up in Puttaparthi. Before I actually came to Puttaparthi, Swami was this exotic god, that faraway thing, we could only aspire to be that or aspire to somehow get close. This magnificent, exotic being, distant. Then in 99 and 2001, twice I had an opportunity. Again, it's a long story. In the interest of time, I'll cut it short. First time I had eye contact with Swami. In 99 in Delhi and in 2001 in Puttaparthi. Swami just came in 99 to Delhi and there was an opportunity, and Swami just straight walked to me and just looked at me and just kept looking at me. And I just fell in love. And similarly, something happened in 2001 and 2002, I ended up in Parthi. And instantly, Swami just embraced me. I mean, he literally, physically, and metaphorically completely embraced me. And he said, you are mine and I'm yours. That's it. You are my son and I'll take care of you forever.
So he was like a parent.
So the exotic Swami.
He was like a parent for you. A parent.
Oh, yeah. He in fact told my physical, biological parents in the interview room that your children are my children from today. You can forget about them. Your children are my, I have a younger sister. So referring to both of us, Swami said, your children are my children. Forget about them. Because my mom used to always worry, what's happening to, will this boy get married? Will he find a job? What's going to happen to him? Swami said, don't worry. Your children, my children. You can forget about them. So yeah, and then so the exotic God became the loving, affectionate mother, providing for everything. And but the joke is, or I don't know, now it looks like a joke, my misery never left me. Sitting even in the interview room, I had the world at my feet, literally. I was, again, lack of a better phrase, I was the chosen one. I used to be in and out of the interview room all the time. I used to travel with Swami. 4 or 5 times have traveled with Swami and everything, and things that people would be craving for. But that deep sense of misery, deep sense of something is lacking, simply never left me. In fact, Swami once affirmed it in an interview. Swami asked, what do you want? I said, Swami, I want you. I want to be always with you. And then Swami, he said, pointing to himself, he said, this also will not satisfy you, sir. He said like that, So this also will not satisfy. By this, I now understand he's talking about the form and the personality, which we call Sai Baba. This also will not satisfy you, sir, he said, which is so true. In 2007, 2008, what happened? Something remarkable happened to me, and suddenly it dawned on me that the quality of my life is not determined by how much money I have, what education I have. It is not even determined by how many interviews Swami gives me. It is not even determined by how much Swami loves me. My life's quality is determined entirely by the state of my consciousness. How life is happening within me, that is all that matters. And life is not happening within me the way I want it to happen. Inside, it's all messed up. So what? In Sanskrit, there's a beautiful phrase, tatah kim. So what? It is so what? So what? And suddenly dawned on me, okay, I got 300 interviews with Swami. So what?
Get over it.
I got 40 talks. I gave 40 talks in front of Swami. So what? Swami said, I love you. So what? So the whole thing became about me, and not in a selfish way. The attention just naturally became inward. I said, I have to make this piece of life work. I have to make, this has to flower. It's wonderful that Swami said he will take care of me. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. But this piece of life has to work. My experience of life has to become profound and sublime.
Yeah.
Everything else is just a story. Meaningless, just story, It's a memory. So then attention dramatically started to turn inwards. And really, I would say that's kind of the third phase when the exotic Swami became the loving mother. And then he became my guru in the truest sense of the word, prodding me from within to turn inward.
He was the loving mother who captured you in a heartbeat at one point in your life. In fact, it was the last time you had a chance to speak with him face to face. I think it was 2009, just a couple of years before Mahasamadhi. And it was the last time Baba spoke to you, and he asked you very candidly, it sounds like very forthrightly, is to, why are you afraid? I am here. What did he pick up in you that maybe you didn't sense in yourself?
Oh, there's a small prelude to that. Around January 2009, Swami in an interview, one of my last interviews, in the interview room, Swami said, enough, stop coming for darshan.
To you?
Don't keep coming and sitting here. Yes. So usually what happens, Swami gets angry with you and then he says, get out, don't come for darshan. But nothing like that sort happened with me. Very pleasantly, lovingly, Swami says, stop coming. And I was shocked because the good last 8 years, I know I have known nothing else but to come and sit in the Kulwant hall and have his darshan. And I said, Swami, why? But Swami didn't elaborate, and I got it. By the time I had come enough distance to Swami to really get what he was saying, basically he was asking me to go inward. That's enough of this. You know. And okay, I said, okay, Swami. Then I came out of the interview, but I didn't take it seriously. I kept coming for darshan. Again, after 2 months or so, Swami said, you're still here. I told you. Only then it dawned on me, oh my God, Swami was actually serious. So around April, I had kind of made up my mind that that's about it. Once or twice more, I will go and then I will stop going for darshan. And in one of those last few darshans, Swami called me. He came in his golf cart in the veranda. I was sitting there. Swami called me. And I thought he was going to say something, but he just extended his hand. I extended my hand. Swami was already quite physically feeble, but still he gave a very firm grip. He firmly held my palm and said, why are you afraid? I am here. It was to me at that time like it was a huge change in my life. Although I was already beginning the process, I already begun the process of going inward, but still to completely cut yourself off from all that made sense to you and all that you valued, the physical form, the darshan. It was a bit of intimidating experience, a little bit of uncertainty. Swami said, why are you afraid? I'm here. And that's it. I never went to Kulwanthal again. I did go occasionally to sing a bhajan or so in the morning, but I didn't leave Parthi. I would just, be in Parthi, but I just didn't go.
That's 11 years ago now when he asked you why you were afraid. I think I heard you say, because of obvious reasons, because of all that you were going through, that there was anxiety, stress, and presumably fear in you today. Now, 11 years later, what if he were to ask you that same question? How would you answer?
Oh, if Swami asks me today, why are you afraid I'm here? I would say, of course you are here, and I know it. So there is no fear. Where else you will be except here?
I guess a better way to put it is, has that fear that he spoke of 11 years ago, has that left you by now?
Ted, nothing ever really leaves, but it shows up much lesser now. Much, much lesser.
That's good enough.
Yeah, oh yeah. It is what it is. And what is always good enough.
Yeah. You've got some great phrases that came from Baba. Here's another one. I just loved it when I heard you talk about this. You talked about it a couple of times. It's one of my favorite Baba phrases, thanks to you reporting it, which is from source, not from force. From source, not from force. I heard you make reference to that twice. Talk about it any way you want. But at one point, when you made reference to this, it was at a time in your life when you were consuming all sorts of information. You were doing every drive you could to improve yourself. You were losing weight by the kilo. And he saw that in you and became concerned, I think, for your own well-being when he used that phrase. What does the phrase mean to you?
What it means to me today is, you see, how life happens is we consume information from outside. and then we make sense of it. See, for example, when I'm sitting in front of Swami and Swami is giving a discourse, we need to understand I am not hearing Swami's discourse. I am only hearing my interpretation of Swami's discourse. And there is not one discourse. There are as many discourses, as many people there are in the Kulwant Hall, because everybody is perceiving Swami's discourse in a different way. So actually, all of us are all the time living in our own worlds. It only looks as if there is one world. All of us have our own individual worlds, and most times these worlds don't even meet. Mm-hmm. So all the time, the attention, when it is outward, we are consuming information, making sense of it, creating new meaning out of it, and trying to make more sense of it. In very short, this is force. Because we're trying to fit reality into our mental construct. It is like trying to fit a camel through a keyhole. Source, moment we say, okay, no more stories, no more meaning, no more words, no more thoughts. Let me directly look at who am I, using the faculty of unprejudiced, thoughtless attention or awareness. Then we recognize ourselves beyond the mind, beyond meaning, beyond time, and beyond words. After that, we may choose to use words to explain that, but really, that place has no place for words at all. Absolutely not. So force is basically, okay, this is just first time I'm putting it this way, just coming in this moment. Again, part of the game of uncertainty. Trying to force reality into our understanding is force. Mm-hmm. And allowing reality to seep into our understanding is source. So till that point of time, I was trying to understand reality, and it's painful because it is not possible. It is a game we will lose. So, understanding through discourses, understanding through my own efforts, meditation, or what I thought at the time was meditation, books, this, that, talking to people, and then subjecting myself to all kinds of horrors in the hope that I can make it work. But it was not working. But the joke is, I was not aware, or rather I chose to shut that idea out that it's not working because there was not enough attention here. Mm-hmm. Oh, it should be working. Swami is talking to me. Oh, everything is fine, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, oh, I am with an avatar. But it is not working. That is the reality. Then suddenly, because Swami's grace, could call it the Guru's grace, you become aware of the reality. And then, well, all really that happens is you turn inward. And you come face to face with reality as it is. And the moment that happens, reality starts to unravel. And the longer we stay with reality as it is, the more it begins to unravel, layer by layer, layer by layer. It's just on its own. It kind of, instead of you consuming it, it begins to consume you. And insight happens.
You say reality starts to unravel. Probably another person who's come as far as you might use different words to say that. Because I go out of my way to want to interview people such as yourself and others, I do encounter, not many, but some along the way who are said to be awakened. They don't say it. But their view is using their words, and I've heard this from more than one person. You say reality starts to unravel, and they say they lose their sense of self. In other words, the self that's inside Ted that governs my thoughts, that creates the images of my own self-worth, profile, accomplishments, disappointments, miseries and suffering I may have caused. All of that is now seen outside of who I am. And those would be their words too. And I find that many people use that same phraseology, that I've lost self. I no longer have a sense of self. It's outside, and I see myself as everything. So are you familiar with that? Is this what you mean when you say you see yourself
unraveling?
Yeah, completely. So when you say the sense of self, it is this only: meanings, words, thoughts, labels, categories, definitions, judgments, opinions, prejudices, biases. So all this is what makes Sanjay, all this is what makes Ted. So yes, absolutely, that is also my experience. The way I put it is, I start getting a distance from who I think I am.
Hmm.
You see, and when there is distance, it stops affecting you. For example, if something were to happen to me right now, it will affect me deeply. Let us say I get a headache, it's going to affect me. Suppose my parents get a headache, it would still affect me, but not as much. God forbid that. Suppose you get a headache, I would still be concerned, but lesser so,
Yeah.
because I just know you for a few days. Suppose somebody I don't even know gets a headache, it's really not concerning because there is distance. So you see, more the distance, lesser is the effect. So when I become distant from who I thought, like some you say, you're not one but three, when who I really am, when I start to experience the distance from myself, one starts to live in a space of, people have called it detachment, some people call it disidentification. You hold yourself lightly. That's the way I put it. There is more spaciousness in your consciousness. There's a lot of space. Everything is still there. Sanjay is still there, but I hold him lightly. He's not that important. His opinions still matter. I might still consider Sanjay's opinions. I may sometimes even act on them, but it is not that important. It is not a matter of life and death, how it would have been probably 10 years back. So we begin to hold, again, these are just words, non-self, you begin to hold it lightly. I still have to make an opinion about you, you see, and you still have to make an opinion about me. That's how life works. But we hold all this lightly. It's just, yeah, it's there. We will use it when it is required, and not when it's not.
I'm asking you if you encounter more Baba devotees who are on to where you are now, self-inquiry.
Yeah, to put it simply, my life's work, Ted, is just to spread self-inquiry to as touch as many lives as possible I can with self-inquiry. Is it happening inside devotees? It means I would not like to pass a judgment, but it'll be better if it is more prevalent.
Mm-hmm. Well, you wrote me a letter in which you said that very thing, that your life is to share what you know now. I think that's very astute. Those who I'm meeting along the way, Jody and I are encountering, I mean, we sort of recognize where they are by their, if not absence of ego, their lack of ego, their compassion, their love, their non-judgment, their serenity, their impartiality. All these traits indicate that they're someplace that we only aspire to become. But the one thing they all seem to have in common is, and along with what you're saying, is the willingness or the desire to share. It sounds like that's one of the supreme desires you have in the manner in which you're going to spend the rest of your life.
When you have found something truly valuable, not something you think is valuable, but something that has truly touched you, the desire to share is natural and spontaneous. One cannot help it. One simply can't help it.
Thank you.
One question I skipped over, and I didn't mean to, was following 2009, again, just a couple of years before Baba's Mahasamadhi. This is now following the last interview you had with him. You were never very physically close to Baba again until he left his form. And that's when you said you began having experiences of Swami. What did you mean by of Swami?
When I got distant physically from the form, 2009 to 2011, and obviously 2011, the form dissolved, Swami became a part of my experience of myself. So Swami was no more a thought or a memory. Swami became my presence. I don't really know how to put it in a way that you can understand. You see, right now, Swami is only a memory, or Swami is an understanding. Oh, I get Swami was God, or Swami is God. It's an understanding, a knowing, or a memory. Oh, it was so wonderful. 2007, Swami did this for me. No memory, however beautiful, however wonderful, however cherished, it always pales into comparison before the immensity of the presence of this moment. Any memory, however great, pales into comparison before the immensity of presence here and now. And Swami became to me that. So I don't even know how to put it. It is like, there's a beautiful thing. So Ramana Maharishi was dying. Somebody asked him, where will you go after you die? And apparently he said, where to go? I am here. It's such a profound statement. We really should meditate on it. Where to go? I am here. It encapsulates everything there is to know about spirituality.
Yeah.
Where to go? I am here.
Yeah.
So that has kind of become like, there is like, oh, should we pray to Swami? Will his grace come? How do I summon him? How do I connect to Swami? All this has become unreal to me now. It doesn't make any sense. Where else will Swami go? He is here. I lose him, then I am not here. That's all.
That answers the very next question, because I broke out laughing when I saw in an interview or a talk you gave when you said that you really don't miss Swami today. How can you miss something, someone, Baba, if Baba never left? I think would be the answer you just gave.
He never left because he never came. He is and was always here. He is inseparable from me. I lose him when I lose myself. That's it. There is no loss. There is nothing like God's grace. Even Swami's love seems unreal because there is no such thing.
So when Baba says to you and anybody,
he cannot help but love me, or there is no, even if you say duality, the only thing we can take for granted in this world, every relationship has to be maintained. Even a mother and son relationship has to be maintained. Some minimum maintenance is required. Spouse, some maintenance. If you absolutely abdicate all responsibility, the relationship will fall apart eventually. The only love we can take for granted is Swami's love. I don't have to do anything to earn it or to deserve it. Nothing. I do not have to move my little thumb or little finger, to earn or deserve Swami's love and grace. It is available to me aplenty, anytime, anywhere, whatever I do, however I am. It's here and now. It is inseparable from who we are in this moment.
So the key question I want to ask you about that then is, but I see Baba's primary message is about non-duality. And for those of us in the West, that's still a very new concept. It's almost impossible to understand at first. You have to wrestle with it for a while and be wide open in your judgment. It seems to me that when Baba would say to you or to me, repeat after me, I am God, I am God, I am no different from God. Isn't he saying in a very non-dualistic way, Sanjay, you are Baba, you are Baba, you are no less than Baba. So when you talk to him, never leaving, he's never arrived, he's always been. He is you. Or am I stretching that point too far?
Oh, absolutely not. Exactly. He is you.
I mean, is you. He is you.
He is you is a beautiful way of putting it, but I will tell you how that experience is. There is no he and there is no you. There is only the absolute totality of this moment.
This is where words fail us. Yes.
Exactly. So, when we say me and Baba are one, actually it is a little misleading. And that is why words are so tricky. That is why Swami was so frugal, so to say, with his words when it came to answering the question, who am I? The reason Swami was so frugal was when you say me and Baba are one, no, me and Baba are not one. There is only one. There is no me and Baba.
Yeah. Oops. I apologize. A loud car just went by.
Okay. It's like if I put two mirrors in front of me for me to say, oh, both those images are same. No, they are not same. They are unreal. They don't exist. There is no me and Baba. There is just one.
Yeah.
And in the one, there is no me and there is neither Baba.
So how much resistance are you greeted with when you try pointing people in that direction to see that nothing they thought existed ever came into being and today doesn't exist?
Oh, I never say this to people unless they come and ask me.
So you don't get any resistance.
I don't give unsolicited advice. I sit quietly. My life's purpose is to flower this being to the fullest possibility. And on the way, if somebody wants to walk with me, I am glad to walk with them. But other than that, I am not trying to out here to convince anybody or to convert anybody to my way of looking at things, because the grass grows at its own pace. The baby comes out in 9 months. You can't speed up the process by feeding more food to the mother. Things happen at the pace they have to happen.
You have a wonderful way of putting it. I'm glad I asked the question just to hear that answer. Words do matter. Sometimes they get me in trouble when I use the wrong words, or words that maybe are ill-timed for the conversation. And I just got done talking about the quote you gave by saying that you don't miss Swami. Out of context, that could be controversial. In context, it makes perfect sense. You also made a statement once that probably raised a couple of people's eyebrows out of context. And it goes like this. One day you wrote a letter to Swami. You were upset. You were angry. You wrote a letter to Swami, which I don't think you ever expected that he would take, saying that,
Swami, you no longer love me.
and the reason why you phrased it that way is because he seemed to be ignoring you for a while. Well, I would most likely feel exactly the same way. Baba came out one day, walked right up to you, took that letter that you never, I think you meant never to really give it to him. And he not only took it, he opened it and he read it, and he read it out loud. Tell us more about how that story turned out.
So, the thing is like this, and Swami is so wonderful at making you feel special. And when he is in that mood to make you feel special, he can really make you feel special. And the ego gets so used to that attention. And when you are new to Swami's affections, you tend to take a lot of liberty. I wouldn't have dared do that a few years down the line, but I was just new, and Swami will make you feel as if you are the world to him. Like he has come down only for you, you know. So, and suddenly Swami withdrew that attention, and the ego was, like fish out of water. And I wrote a harsh letter. And literally, I wrote, Swami, you no longer love me. Your heart is of stone, you know. And I was holding letter, actually not to the letter, because holding a letter is one way of grabbing his attention.
Sure.
So I was holding the letter, and I was, Swami, just take the letter, give it to somebody, and at least I'll get to go close to him. And Swami called me. He just stepped out of the interview room, just right at the door, at the threshold, and he called me. And I was sitting right in the front of the veranda. He called me and he said, "Give me the letter." And he started opening it and reading it. And right there, 5 feet from him, was the vice chancellor, the registrar, and all the VIPs and all my professors. And oh my God! And Swami started. Swami was very kind. When he reached that line, he softened his voice. He started mumbling. So I'm not sure if others had heard it, but even if they did, I mean, what can anybody say? It's Swami. So Swami said, and then Swami said, when he read the word, Swami, you no longer love me. Then Swami said, no, no, no. My love is always the same. Your love is only like this, like this. Swami's love, always the same.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah.
We talked about this in writing before, and I'm not quite sure I'm going to phrase it right. So be patient with me here. Would you please share something about what I think you said was a notable experience you once had in a very small temple tucked away high in the Himalayas, something you shared in a talk back in the year 2014. Is that enough of a clue to get you started?
Yeah. So we were traveling with some friends. We're about 40, 50 of us, just going around the Himalayas, just visiting temples and doing some small treks. So somehow I have been always like this. I find it difficult to sleep after 4. 4 a.m. I just wake up. It's unless I'm very sick or something else is very wrong with me, I can't sleep beyond that. So I got up at 4. Everybody was fast asleep and I didn't know what to do. So it was Himalayan winter. It's very cold. So I just put on all my woolen clothes and I just stepped out of my hotel. And just across the road, I heard some bells. So I just thought, oh, looks like a temple. I just walked in. It was around 4:45 or so. And the moment I entered the temple, it was magnificent. The energy, which now I identify as the Divine Mother, was so palpable. You could almost feel it. It was 2014. And I just went, and around 4:45, 4:50, they were just opening the temple. They were just cleaning. They were still sweeping the place. And I just found a corner and I just sat. And I just sat and said, what to do? Let's meditate. So I closed my eyes and started meditating. And it was almost as if you pull the plug. You know, you're watching television and somebody just goes and pulls the plug and the television goes, poof, gone. It was as if somebody just pulled the plug. And instantly, again, you know, words are very difficult to understand, but I will try to explain. I just went into a state of silence and was just sitting like that. And then after some time, about 10 or 15 minutes later, I clearly heard a voice in my heart. So it was not a thought, it was actually a voice. I still remember the voice. It was a female voice, a very sweet, melodious female voice. I actually heard it physically. And the voice said, "Seek me in wordless silence. Seek me in wordless silence." And with that voice, I came back and then I opened my eyes. And I found to my utter amazement two things. One, there was arti going on in the temple at that time. So I don't know if you know, North Indian artis are not like our Swami artis. They're very loud. There's conches going on, cymbals beating, people clapping, bells clinging. So it was a loud noise. Until that second, I had no clue about that. And secondly, 2.5 hours had passed. It was 7:45 or so. But in my awareness, it looked like about 10 or 15 minutes. So when I opened my eyes, I thought 10 or 15 minutes have passed, but 2.5 hours had passed. And you know, usually if I sit for that long, my body is a little sore, the back will be a little sore. But I felt as if I'm just born. There was no soreness anywhere in the body. So it was just an amazing experience. You know, when the mind is absent, the universe comes to a still. The universe comes to a standstill. Nothing really moves. Even the body stops to, you know, react. So it was a wonderful experience. And of course, I was so blissed out the whole day that I just wanted to hug anybody. My eyes, I set my eyes on. I just want to hug them and tell them how much I love them. Man, woman, animal, you know, I had to force myself to stop myself, you know, for social reasons. Otherwise, I was like that for about a day and a half. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's not such a big thing. It's okay. It has happened a few times after that. But the thing is, you see, the thing is, when the mind is not there, time is not there, physicality is not there. At the time, what appeared to be 10, 15 minutes, you know, was 2.5 hours. So really, when God says, mind is the world, it became real to me at the time. When all attention is withdrawn from the world, from the mind, there is really no world. There is no time. And probably that is why God is called timeless. Now I am able to comfortably slide into thoughtlessness and remain like that. But you see, this is an experience for many people. Artists experience this all the time. You know, musicians, when they are playing their violin or guitar, they call it zoning in. You know, they're just there. Only the music is there. They put it like, oh, I am not there anymore playing. The music is playing itself. Sportsmen have this, you know.
Probably artists
right
as well.
At the moment,
Yes.
they're totally mindless. The key thing is to be able to do that consciously.
Yeah.
Instead of that happening occasionally, one should be able to have enough strength, inner strength, to simply put away thought as and when we wish to.
Well,
that is self-mastery. That is mastery. Yeah.
What prompted me to talk about this is hearing what you said from this voice, see me in wordless silence. And that led me to think about spiritual practices that people go through on a day-to-day basis. And I know of some spiritual people who say they go through no practice. But it's useful to people like me, and presumably to others as well, to hear the nature of a person's spiritual practice on a day-by-day basis. Would you be willing to share your own with us?
I'm glad you asked that. So the practice is really simple, Ted. The problem is it is so simple that most people miss it. It is so absurdly simple. It's really just this. In this moment, whatever shows up, what would show up? Physicality could show up, means body could play up. Thought could show up. Emotion, which is basically the play of thought in the body, could show up. breathing could show up, or whatever else shows up. If there is an instant recognition and release of all forms of resistance to what shows up. Now, this is the key. Moment something shows up, instantly our minds are wired to say, ah, this is wonderful. Oh, this is not so wonderful. This ought to be. Oh, this ought not to be. Oh, this is a good thought. This is a bad thought. Ah, why am I feeling like this? Ah, I'm feeling like this. The moment there's a judgment, there is an acceptance or a resistance. This is the only two ways the mind reacts to what shows up in the moment. Only two ways. There is no third way. Instantly, either there is acceptance or there is resistance. And then it takes other convoluted forms. But if we can catch ourselves and release all resistance in this moment, as it shows up, simply release all resistance, we become completely available to this moment. All our diffused energy in this way can be gathered. And then when we enter the heart center, we simply ask the question, who am I? Now, this who am I, what's again very important to note, that it is not a contemplation. It is not a dialogue with oneself. In the strictest sense of the term, it is not even a question. We use the three words, who am I, but the question itself is not a word. It is a direct dive, a directly paying attention to the I-ness that arises spontaneously from the heart. Because often when I say ask the question, who am I, people get it as it's a mental dialogue. Oh, so who am I? Oh, so am I this? Oh, no, it's not that at all. Because, minimum words have to be used. So we say, who am I? But really, it's not even a question in that sense of the term. It's directly looking at the I-ness. So when I say, I am Sanjay, there is somebody who claims to be Sanjay. When I say, oh, I am enlightened, for example, somebody says, there is somebody claiming to be something. So before we leave from I am and then go to, oh, Sanjay, oh, I am tall, I am intelligent, I am stupid, I am fair, I am dark, or whatever, we stay in the I am. We don't allow the energy to go to the next step. Stay in the I am. And just look at that nature of the I-ness or I am that spontaneously arises in the heart. We don't make an effort, it spontaneously arises. That is the root of individual existence or the me. The moment the I rises, and if it is not paid enough attention to, the I goes and latches onto the form, and then the I becomes Ted. And then the I becomes Ted's life, and then becomes Ted's opinions, judgments, stories, Ted's past, Ted's future, and the whole drama. Before the I can latch on to something, you catch that I and look at its nature. Then instead of latching on to something, that I becomes a portal. It becomes a pathway to the absolute. It sounds complicated, but it is utterly simple. It's laughably simple, if only people are willing to try it.
I hope everybody got that point that you made so well. I certainly understand it. And am I led to believe that this constitutes your daily practice of spiritual pursuit?
Yes. I still do sit twice a day.
Meditate?
For more focused inquiry. Yeah, meditation again is a word which is so differently understood by different people.
It's like the word God.
Exactly. I would just call it, I sit silently. I would just put it that way. But yes, this is also a constant practice. So
I have asked this question, which you don't have to answer, by the way. And I've been surprised how well constructed the reactions have been from a few people that I've asked it of, asking them if they feel through their pursuit of self that they've become, let's just use the word, awakened. Do you feel like you've reached that level of heightened understanding, what I would call awakening?
It's such an interesting question that basically your question is, are you awakened? Yeah.
Yes.
My answer is yes and no. And really it is. And I'm saying this with a bit of a sense of responsibility. Yes, because I am awakened when I'm awakened, and I am not when I think I'm not. I have enough clarity to see that what we call awakened is absolutely my natural nature. Does Sanjay sometimes show up clouding that clarity? Yes, he does show up. He does show up. Sometimes it needs a little bit of attention to put him away so that the clarity is again there. Now, have I reached? You know, I have now come to this place. I am quite sure that there is no such thing as reached. And I don't think I will ever reach. I don't think anybody has ever reached. There comes a stage in your life where you're absolutely without fear and there is absolute clarity. And you know that whatever life throws at you, you can handle. But I really don't know that if there is anything like awakened, because I have actually never heard any awakened being saying that I am awakened. you know, so I don't know where awakening starts, and I really don't know. I just know that what I have is so valuable to me that I wouldn't want to trade it for anything in the world. And I'm growing like all of us. Today I'm clearer than how I was yesterday. I have more attention, and as I pay more and more attention to myself, what I truly am, I can see that it is eating up what I am not.
I want to say that I think this is a very, very important talk.
Important because what more important lesson is there from Sai Baba than for the deepest self-examination to know thyself?
Yeah, that completely. More than just the command of knowing oneself, if we are more attentive to whatever sadhana we are doing, it will bear much more fruit. See, in one interview, I asked Swami, these people say bhakti is and wisdom, the path of devotion and the path of wisdom, how is it different? And Swami's answer was amazing. He said, those who still see difference between bhakti and jnana, they know neither. Those who still see difference between the path of devotion and the path of knowledge, they don't know either. It's the same. So in my own experience, you see, even in the path of wisdom, the first step is to let go of this. Letting go of this. And that is the same thing that happens in service. Or if it is done in the way it's supposed to be done, there is a letting go of oneself. Same even in simply chanting the name of the Lord, one has to let go of everything else except the name. So the first step is anyway letting go. Letting go of what I think I am. Letting go of what appears important to the mind. So any way we take social service, namasmarana, meditation, japa, dhyana, self-inquiry, the first step is always letting go of what the mind thinks is very important for itself or for its survival or for its own thriving. So that letting go is anyway the first step. And after that, if you use emotion to climb up the ladder of consciousness, it becomes devotion. If you use awareness, it becomes meditation. If you use intellect and cutting through layers of delusions, it becomes wisdom. So, there comes a time when all these converge. There are days when I'm just feeling more emotional about Swami. It's fine. I just let it be. And there are days I feel nothing. It's fine too. It's fine. It's all fine. Once we begin to know oneself, it's all fine. It is just what it is. So all paths begin to converge. In fact, this is one sign of evolved understanding. When we see all paths as same and not as distinct compartments, then it's all the same, really. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it would be nice if people are more attentive to what they are doing and what impact it is happening on my experience of life. That inward attention is key anyway. That is key.
Last point is yours. I was going to say last answer to a question, but instead of me asking a question, what have we left out? This is so important because it touches upon ground that isn't discussed routinely or frequently among my peers, my Baba peers here in the States, and that is self-inquiry. That is, who am I? That is inward investigation. That is trying to find out that I'm not, as Baba says, the Ted I think I am, or the Ted Sanjay thinks I am. What can you bring to the discussion that wraps this up that will be useful, that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to say is there's a misconception that this is a difficult path, that other things are easier. It's easier to chant God's name. It is easier to just go out and do a medical camp. Self-inquiry is difficult. It's rare, but rare is not difficult. Difficult is to go to a gym and do a bench press with 100 pounds. That's difficult. Difficult is to solve a complicated mathematical problem. But self-inquiry is not difficult. It is rare because many people do not have the willingness to do it. So it appears as if it is difficult. It is not difficult. For the willing, it is incredibly easy. It is so easy that the mind almost misses it. So my only, what should I say? I don't want to say advice. My only suggestion or invitation to my beloved brothers and sisters of the Sai family is that this is truly the direct way to realize the Sai within. Simple, direct, elegant. And in this path, one cannot get lost. One cannot get fooled. There is no place for delusion. There is simply no place for story. It's simple, direct, and really elegant, and instantly we can get in touch with Swami's grace and love, if only we are willing. It'll need a certain level of inner commitment. When there is there and there is enough willingness, this is so easy. It is so natural that I just wish more people take to it.
No, good answer. I'm really glad I set up the question that way to elicit such a response. I want to thank you, Sanjay. I think this is going to go down, for me anyway, is one of the more significant, most important discussions we've had within the Sai community that I've been a part of, because I just don't hear very many people talking this way about what I see as Baba's greatest command to each and every one of us, to know ourselves for the truth of who we are. And I see that in you. I caught that in the video I saw, and I hope we were able to reproduce some of that here. Thank you for expanding upon the questions that passed through my mind when I saw your first video and adding to all the points that were made. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Sai Ram.
Thank you, Ted. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Now,